Meghan Markle's aspirations of securing a billionaire, along with her marriage to Prince Harry, which was once seen as the ultimate act of royal defiance, has slowly unraveled. What was once an optimistic fairy tale narrative, a couple defying royal tradition and finding their own path, has now descended into a reality filled with uncertainty, disillusionment, and unforeseen consequences. Their partnership, which was hailed as a bold stand against the constraints of an ancient institution, is now marked by shifting public perceptions and growing distance between the couple. Over time, the cracks in the seemingly perfect story have expanded, and the fairy tale everyone believed in is increasingly hard to hold together. In the early days, Meghan and Harry's departure from royal duties seemed like an empowering act, an audacious break from the traditional constraints that had governed the lives of the British royal family for centuries. The media portrayed them as the pioneers of a new royal age, one where the past would be left behind in favor of a freer, more modern existence. They were two people who had found their own way, disregarding centuries of tradition in favor of something new and radical. But as time has gone on, it has become clear that this new path is far from smooth. What was once a story about breaking free from royal conventions has now become an intricate, sometimes painful, saga of personal and public trials. Recently, this tension reached a new and dramatic peak when Meghan's global aspirations took a hit from an unlikely source, a place she had previously considered an ally in her quest for greater visibility and influence. Dubai, a city that prides itself on luxury, sophistication, and its connections with the world's most powerful elite, became the unexpected stage for an incident that would send shockwaves through international media. This was no ordinary rejection. It was a carefully orchestrated, deliberate act. It was a message to Meghan, both personal and professional, one that no one saw coming and that few could have predicted. Behind the opulent doors of the city's grand palaces and within the corridors of power, whispers circulated, and one name resonated louder than the rest: Meghan Markle. Insiders close to the matter suggest that the decision to deny Meghan entry was not a simple matter of bureaucracy or an unforeseen glitch in diplomatic channels. This was no accident. It was an intentional, calculated move designed to send a clear message, one that could not be ignored. The rejection was not just about immigration policy. It was deeply personal. But what exactly led to this radical shift in Dubai's stance toward Meghan? What was it about her that prompted such a stark and public rebuke? And why did it result in such intense reactions behind the scenes? These were the questions that dominated the media cycle, leaving the public riveted by the unfolding drama. As rumors spread and tempers flared, the entire world watched as this high-profile incident continued to unravel, and no one seemed to have all the answers. The fallout from this incident sent shockwaves across the globe. The Dubai moment, as it came to be known, was supposed to be nothing more than a quiet and inconspicuous arrival, a smooth entry into the city that would be handled with typical Dubai efficiency. Meghan Markle had arrived in Dubai in early February 2026, expecting nothing more than the usual polite and professional reception that is typical for well-known figures visiting the emirate. The expectation was simple: an arrival that would be devoid of fanfare, without the cameras or flashing lights, one that would pass without the need for red carpets or over-the-top displays. But what Meghan encountered upon landing was far from the warm welcome she had anticipated. Rather than the smooth, understated arrival she had envisioned, Meghan was met with an eerie silence. Dubai, a city renowned for its ability to maintain its carefully curated public image through quiet elegance, had decided to make its point not with grand gestures or public displays, but with complete discretion. There were no photographers waiting to capture her every move, no crowds of well-wishers, no grand welcomes. In fact, there was no visible reception at all. Meghan was quietly escorted to a private room in the airport, away from the public eye. In that quiet, unremarkable space, an internal review was carried out. The decision was swift: entry denied. It was a quiet yet powerful rejection, one that spoke volumes even in its silence. In a matter of hours, the incident was over. There were no photos circulating across the media, no official press releases from the Dubai government, and no spokespeople coming forward to clarify the situation. Meghan Markle was quietly placed on a return flight, her brief visit to the city effectively erased from the public consciousness. For Dubai, that was the end of the matter. For the rest of the world, however, it was just the beginning. What surprised many wasn't the refusal itself. Under UAE law, immigration officials have considerable discretion when it comes to granting entry, and entry is not an automatic right, even for celebrities or world-renowned public figures. In fact, such decisions are often made behind closed doors, and Dubai is known for handling such matters with efficiency and discretion. What truly caught the public's attention was what happened next. Instead of following the usual diplomatic channels through the United States, which would have been the expected route given her American citizenship, Meghan Markle allegedly sought help through her British royal connections. This unexpected move transformed what could have been a routine immigration issue into something much more complex and deeply symbolic. This decision raised numerous questions. Why, after years of distancing herself from royal life, did Meghan Markle choose to reach out to the very institution she had spent so much time criticizing? Why would she involve the British royal family in a situation that required such careful protocol, especially in a jurisdiction like Dubai that values clarity above all else? Many royal insiders and commentators were left scratching their heads. Meghan had spent years asserting her independence from the royal family, distancing herself from the very institution that she now seemed to be relying on. This raised uncomfortable questions about whether her actions had blurred the lines that Dubai had worked so hard to maintain, lines that separate private individuals from state-affiliated institutions, and past royal lives from present public realities. Could this move have been a miscalculation on Meghan's part? Had she overstepped boundaries that Dubai had set for itself? Dubai, a city renowned for its discretion, responded to this move with silence. There were no official comments, no clarifications issued, and no attempts to defend the decision. Instead, Dubai moved on, quietly and resolutely, with no further public explanation. In a city where restraint is often wielded as a form of power, the absence of response spoke louder than any words ever could. The global conversation, however, raged on. Social media buzzed with speculation, and news outlets exploded with questions. Was this a personal snub, aimed specifically at Meghan Markle, or was it a larger geopolitical move? Were Meghan's past controversies a factor in the decision, or was Dubai simply making a pragmatic assessment of the risks involved in associating with her? What became clear from this incident was that Dubai's decision wasn't based on personal feelings. It was about risk management. In a city known for controlling its image with precision, Dubai wasn't taking any chances. It wasn't about disliking Meghan personally. It was about ensuring that any association with her came with no ambiguity or unpredictability. As the world reacted, it became evident that the true message wasn't about Meghan herself. It was about stability, control, and the careful balance that Dubai, as a global hub of business and luxury, strives to maintain. And when the risks become too great, the safest course of action is often to simply say no. Meghan Markle's dreams of securing a billionaire, alongside her marriage to Prince Harry, which was once seen as a revolutionary break from royal traditions, is now increasingly crumbling. What initially appeared to be a fairy tale, a bold act of defiance against centuries of royal rules and expectations, has gradually transformed into a reality filled with frustration, disillusionment, and doubt. Their union was once celebrated as a modern take on royal rebellion, a couple breaking free from the confines of the royal family to build a life based on their own terms. It was a story that captured the imagination of the world, one that stood against tradition, forging a new path for themselves outside the boundaries that had held so many before them. But as time marches on, The cracks in the narrative of Meghan and Harry's rebellion have become more evident, more impossible to ignore. Once heralded as the ultimate story of royal defiance, their marriage now feels more like a cautionary tale, and the romance that the world had bought into has become overshadowed by a string of personal and professional challenges. Their carefully curated image as freedom fighters, determined to reshape the world of royalty, is being questioned more and more, not just by the press, but by those closest to them. It's a stark reminder that the pursuit of personal and financial freedom is rarely as glamorous or seamless as it appears. What was once presented as a daring escape into a world of possibilities now feels more like a slow descent into a reality full of struggles for purpose and identity. Recently, this delicate balance was shattered when Meghan's global ambitions were struck by a surprising blow from a source she had never expected. To encounter Dubai, a city synonymous with wealth, power, and its intricate web of connections with the elite of the world. Known for its luxurious appeal and strategic positioning as a global hub for the rich and powerful, Dubai had long been an ally to those seeking influence and global visibility. Yet, in an unexpected turn, the city delivered a rebuke that reverberated across international borders. This was not just any minor incident or a bureaucratic hiccup. It was a deliberate, calculated rejection, aimed not only at Meghan, but at the very notion of celebrity power she had come to rely on. Behind closed doors, whispers of her name spread, not in admiration or endorsement, but in a firm, unmistakable tone of dismissal. Insiders familiar with the situation have suggested that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, but rather a highly strategic move. Dubai, known for its controlled elegance and political maneuvering, delivered a rejection with such calculated restraint that it sent a loud, clear message without uttering a single word. The city, known for carefully curating its image, could not afford to be seen as compromised by association. There was no public outburst, no media frenzy, no grand spectacle. Instead, the city's response was a quiet, resolute decision, a subtle act of power that spoke volumes. Meghan Markle, the global figure who had spent years carving out her identity outside the royal family, had been shown that the doors of Dubai would not open to her as she expected. The decision to bar Meghan's entry was swift, almost too quiet. The lack of fanfare surrounding it was intentional. There were no flashing lights, no headlines marking her arrival, only a calm, almost eerie silence as she was escorted into a private room. In that room, behind closed doors, a short review took place. Within minutes, the decision was made, entry denied. There was no grand proclamation, no media statement to explain why such a high-profile individual was turned away. Instead, the city simply moved on, returning to its business as usual, leaving the rest of the world to unravel what had happened. For those unfamiliar with Dubai's approach, this might have seemed like an arbitrary, impersonal decision. But for those who understand the inner workings of the city's carefully managed power structure, it was a well-calculated statement. Dubai, a place that values discretion and control above all, knew exactly how to make its point without making a scene. The absence of explanation became its own powerful message. There was no need for a public rebuttal, no need to justify the decision to the world. In the quiet handling of Meghan's rejection, Dubai had delivered a message with clarity and precision, one that would resonate long after the event had passed. The world, however, did not respond with the same quietude. As soon as the news broke, social media erupted. A tidal wave of speculation and commentary flooded platforms as people across the globe tried to decipher the meaning behind Dubai's silence. Was this a personal rejection aimed directly at Meghan Markle, or was there a larger geopolitical message hidden beneath the surface? Was Dubai sending a signal about the dangers of celebrity power and the limits of influence? Or was it simply making a calculated decision to distance itself from a high-profile individual whose brand was increasingly seen as unstable? Supporters of Meghan were quick to question the fairness of the decision, calling it a personal slight or a misunderstanding. On the other hand, critics pointed to Meghan's track record, her strained relationships, public controversies, and the growing sense of fatigue surrounding her public persona. Some argued that the rejection was a natural consequence of her increasingly polarizing image, while others speculated that Dubai, ever conscious of its carefully cultivated image, simply couldn't afford to be associated with someone whose influence appeared to be diminishing. The global debate about the incident was far-reaching, with each side interpreting the rejection through their own lens. Some viewed it as an intentional, personal snub, an example of the dangers of fame and the limits of influence. Others framed it as a broader warning about the unpredictable nature of celebrity and the risks involved in associating with individuals who, for all their fame, may be unpredictable in their public life and private ambitions. Yet for many, Dubai's action was more than just a rejection. It became a symbol. It was a reminder that fame and influence alone do not guarantee access, especially in places like Dubai, where stability, predictability, and control are valued more than anything else. Fame is transient, but stability is what secures long-term relationships and partnerships. In this sense, the rejection wasn't personal, it was strategic. Dubai made it clear that, while fame may bring temporary attention, it is stability, reliability, and predictability that ultimately determine who is welcome in its circles. What was supposed to be a quiet, almost invisible arrival had quickly turned into an international conversation. The irony of the situation was palpable. What was meant to be an understated and discreet visit had become a global topic of debate, captivating the media and the public in a way that no one could have foreseen. Dubai's silence, far from being a sign of weakness, had only amplified the event, sparking a wave of speculation and discussion that transcended borders and cultures. The real shock, however, came when Buckingham Palace, after remaining silent for a full 24 hours, finally issued a statement. But unlike the expected royal responses filled with diplomatic language and ambiguity, this was a short, measured statement, concise and perfectly crafted under the authority of Prince William. The statement carried a calm, restrained tone, but the message was unmistakably firm. Meghan Markle no longer speaks for the British royal family. Not now, not ever. In a single, concise statement, Buckingham Palace removed any lingering doubts about Meghan's role within the institution. The message was clear and definitive. Meghan's affiliation with the royal family no longer held any diplomatic weight. She was no longer a representative of the crown, and any assistance she might require from the British government would come through the standard channels, not via any royal connections. This wasn't an act of retribution or a public punishment, as some speculated. Rather, it was a strategic move to restore clarity to a situation that had become clouded with ambiguity over the years. For years, Meghan's departure from royal duties had been followed by a strange period of ambiguity. Titles once officially retired were still used in public contexts. Connections that were supposedly severed had lingered in the media and in public appearances. But Buckingham Palace, in this moment, made it clear that this ambiguity had to end. The monarchy relies on clarity, clear roles, clear boundaries, and clear distinctions between private and public spheres. Meghan's attempt to use royal connections after distancing herself from the family for so long threatened to undermine this clarity. In making this statement, the palace ensured that there would be no more confusion, no more ambiguity about who could speak for the royal family and who could not. In doing so, the palace not only closed the door on any further uncertainty, but also protected the institution from unnecessary controversy. The monarchy, by design, survives on predictability, stability, and respect for its role as an impartial, apolitical institution. By drawing a firm line and reaffirming the limits of Meghan's influence, the royal family ensured that the institution's neutrality would not be compromised by outside interests. In the world of global diplomacy and branding, where alliances can shift in an instant, maintaining clear boundaries is crucial to survival. The palace's message was quiet, firm, and clear. Meghan Markle, despite her titles and her history with the royal family, no longer holds the same influence. Her actions, her attempts to use her past affiliations for personal gain, were no longer tolerated within the royal framework. The monarchy would not bend to the pressures of celebrity or public expectations. It would maintain its stability, its neutrality, and its position above the fray. This act of containment, though harsh to some, was necessary. The royal family had to protect itself from the forces that could blur the lines between public service and personal ambition. The message was not just about Meghan, it was about the survival of the monarchy itself. In doing so, Buckingham Palace safeguarded its future, ensuring that it remained a symbol of continuity and stability in a world of chaos and uncertainty. Behind the scenes, reports suggest that Princess Anne, widely respected for her direct and no-nonsense approach to royal affairs, played a pivotal role in reinforcing the monarchy's firm stance. Known for her unwavering commitment to constitutional principles, Princess Anne was instrumental in ensuring that the royal family's message was clear and unambiguous. The emphasis was straightforward and resolute. The monarchy could not and would not be used as a tool for personal gain, whether that be for business ventures, media narratives, or political maneuvering. In her view, royal titles and affiliations were not to be leveraged for individual advantage. They represented duty, tradition, and responsibility, not personal ambition. This decision marked a defining moment in Meghan Markle's journey. For years, she had navigated the turbulent waters of public life, rebranding herself as a symbol of empowerment and reinvention, casting off the shackles of her royal duties in pursuit of a new, more independent identity. However, the events in Dubai, combined with Buckingham Palace's swift and decisive response, made it clear that the royal family's brand of authority cannot be exploited at will. Meghan's royal identity, once seen as a powerful asset that could open doors to global influence and opportunities, no longer carried the weight she had hoped for. The events exposed a harsh reality. Titles and royal affiliations do not automatically grant lasting power or influence. For Meghan, the dream of building a new type of influence, one that transcends her royal background, was now in jeopardy. Her personal brand, which had once been built on the promise of reinvention and the idea that fame could be repurposed for meaningful change, now found itself at a crossroads. The doors to influential partnerships that had once seemed limitless began to close, and her public image, once meticulously curated, became harder to manage. As the world watched, it became evident that Meghan's once promising journey was confronting an uncomfortable truth. In a world driven by power, influence, and perception, uncertainty and unpredictability are far more dangerous than any scandal. What was once perceived as a revolution in royal life had started to feel more like a precarious balancing act, a delicate persona that had started to lose its footing. The events in Dubai, combined with the palace's emphatic response, served as a sharp reminder of the fragile nature of modern influence. In a world that thrives on visibility, branding, and public image, one thing remains certain: predictability is paramount. Celebrities, business figures, and even royals understand that their power lies not just in their public profiles, but in the consistent value they can provide. When a public figure appears volatile, unpredictable, or inconsistent, even the most famous name becomes a liability. Meghan's brand, once a beacon of new beginnings and defying expectations, now faced the sobering realization that influence is granted, not owned. And when the terms of influence change, so too does the value attached to it. Meghan Markle's experience in Dubai exposed the vulnerability that exists at the heart of modern celebrity, especially for those who base their identity on the notion of constant reinvention. The rejection was not just about a single incident. It was a powerful symbol of how fleeting influence can be in a world where power is contingent on consistency, reliability, and the ability to maintain control over one's narrative. The backlash from Dubai, coupled with the swift and resolute action from Buckingham Palace, forced Meghan to confront the reality that her path forward would no longer be paved with royal influence. Instead, she would have to navigate the complex terrain of modern celebrity with a significantly altered public image. As Meghan Markle continues to forge her path outside of the royal family, the question that remains unanswered is whether she can maintain her relevance in a world that demands predictability and stability. Can she reclaim the control over her own narrative that has steadily slipped away from her grasp? Or will the walls continue to close in, leaving her to grapple with the consequences of her shifting public image? While many have speculated about the causes and consequences of the Dubai incident, one truth has become undeniable. Meghan's influence, once thought to be boundless, is now under intense scrutiny. The future is uncertain. The world waits to see whether Meghan can maintain her status as a powerful figure in the public eye, or if the forces of unpredictability will ultimately overwhelm her efforts to reinvent herself. As the days pass and the conversation continues to evolve, Meghan's journey remains a cautionary tale about the fragility of influence, the complexities of personal branding, and the inescapable truth that influence is granted, not owned, particularly when it is tied to an institution that defines the very notion of power. In the end, the world is watching closely, waiting to see if Meghan Markle can navigate this shifting landscape, recalibrate her image, and continue to make an impact, or whether her story will become a reminder of the limits of fame, influence, and the price of independence in a world that thrives on predictability. The walls are indeed closing in. Whether she can break free or find a new way forward remains to be seen.